There is a divine law, unseen yet absolute, moving through every atom of life. It never sleeps, never falters, and never forgets to deliver what one claims with faith. Many people spend their days begging for blessings, while the wise learn to speak them into being. Every word we utter sets in motion unseen forces, and when those words are charged with faith, gratitude, and certainty, the universe rushes to obey. I once found myself bound by debts, not only the debts of money, but of fear, worry, and limitation. My mind was heavy with thoughts of lack, and as I thought, so it became. Bills grew like weeds, and peace fled from my door. Then, in the stillness of despair, I remembered the law. The game of life is a game of boomerangs. Whatever you send out comes back to you. I realized that I had been sending out worry, and worry had returned with interest. So I decided to change my words, to change my world. I stood before the mirror and spoke 9 simple words, radiant with belief. The universe now pays all my debts in full. I did not plead, I did not doubt. I spoke as one who already possessed the gift. For faith does not beg, faith commands. Those 9 words became a decree, a spiritual order placed in the storehouse of infinite supply. I repeated them with joy, not anxiety, knowing that divine substance is never limited, that abundance is ever present, awaiting only my recognition. In the days that followed, I refused to look at lack. Each time fear whispered, "You owe, you lack, you cannot," I answered with my decree. I guarded my words as one guards a treasure, for the tongue is the rudder that steers the ship of destiny. Soon, unexpected avenues opened. Debts were cleared in ways I could not have planned. Gifts appeared, opportunities unfolded, old dues were forgiven. It was as if the universe itself had balanced the books. And I learned this truth: there is no debt that cannot be dissolved by the power of spoken faith. Money is but a shadow. The real substance is spiritual. When we speak words of prosperity, peace, and gratitude, the shadows must rearrange themselves to match the light. The 9 words became a song upon my lips, not a cry of need, but a proclamation of trust. The more I affirmed them, the lighter I became, for faith is the solvent of fear. What was once heavy became weightless. What was once impossible became inevitable. The law works for all who understand it. The moment you speak with conviction, the universe moves. Unseen, unstoppable, exact. Speak only what you wish to see. Declare your freedom as already accomplished. For every word is a seed, and every seed bears fruit after its kind. Words are the mightiest force in the universe, invisible currents shaping visible reality. Every word we speak carries vibration, power, and direction. It is not the mere sound of speech, but the spirit behind it that moves worlds. When a word is spoken with faith, it pierces through the veil of appearances and commands unseen forces to respond. Faith gives it wings, certainty gives it substance, and divine law gives it fulfillment. Words spoken in fear create bondage, while words spoken in faith bring freedom. Each syllable becomes a living messenger, carrying its charge into the unseen realm, returning with matching results. The individual who understands this truth ceases to speak idly. They know that every declaration is a seed planted in the fertile soil of the infinite. The soil does not judge what you plant. It simply brings forth after its kind. Speak of debt, and debt grows. Speak of freedom, and freedom appears. Speak of lack, and lack multiplies. Speak of abundance, and abundance unfolds. The secret lies not in striving but in saying. When one speaks with unshakable faith, the word becomes law. It is no longer a wish but a decree, a spiritual order that the universe cannot refuse. Faith-charged words have a rhythm, a certainty that vibrates beyond doubt. They are not born of desperation or fear, but of divine knowing. The one who speaks them does not glance backward to see if the seed has sprouted. They simply know it has. In the spiritual realm, what is spoken with belief is already complete. It only awaits manifestation in time and space. The wise speak their good as already accomplished. They do not beg heaven to deliver. They command heaven to reveal what is already theirs by divine right. When a person says, "The universe now pays all my debts in full," those words go forth clothed with authority. They are not a request, they are a command. Faith transforms the voice into a creative instrument. Every tone rings through the ethers, arranging events, people, and circumstances to fulfill the spoken decree. This is not fantasy, it is divine order. The law responds to conviction, not to complaint. It is the language of certainty that opens the gates of supply. In truth, we are all speaking our futures into being. The careless word, the fearful phrase, the doubting sigh. Each is a creative act. Most people use their voices to describe conditions. The awakened use theirs to create conditions. The spoken word, infused with faith, does not describe lack, it dissolves it. It does not acknowledge fear, it overrides it. For words are containers of energy, and faith is the fire that fills them with life. When one realizes this, they begin to speak differently. They become aware of tone, intention, and feeling. They know that idle chatter produces idle results, and inspired speech produces miracles. A faithful word cuts through resistance like light through fog. It does not struggle, it simply reveals. Just as darkness cannot argue with light, limitation cannot withstand the decree of faith. Consider how the universe itself began, not with toil but with the word. Let there be light, and there was light. The pattern is eternal. The word comes first, the manifestation follows. To speak with faith is to align oneself with the original creative act. Every individual holds within their speech that same creative spark. When words are spoken in harmony with divine law, they call forth order out of chaos, beauty out of confusion, abundance out of emptiness. Faithful words have the power to rewrite experience. One who has long lived in lack may, by a single decree of truth, begin to reverse years of limitation. For the law is immediate. It recognizes no past, only the eternal now. The moment faith speaks, the tide begins to turn. The one who truly believes will find doors opening, debts dissolving, ideas appearing, friends assisting, all as the natural outworking of spoken faith. There is no need to question how. The how belongs to the divine intelligence that governs all. When one speaks with fear, their words are scattered and weak. They hold no center, no authority. Fear speaks of what it dreads, and by so doing invites it nearer. Faith, however, speaks from the throne of certainty. It knows that every word backed by belief must return multiplied. Such a person no longer says, "I hope it works," but "it is done." Their speech carries the tone of completion, not the tremor of doubt, and the universe, obedient to the vibration of faith, rearranges itself accordingly. The spoken word is like a key that turns in the invisible lock. Without faith, it is an empty motion. With faith, it opens every door. One may repeat affirmations endlessly, yet if they are not believed, they are but hollow echoes. It is not repetition that works miracles, but realization. To speak with realization is to speak from the center of knowing, that deep, quiet assurance that the thing decreed already exists in spirit and must soon appear in form. The power of the word is magnified when spoken in joy and gratitude. Joy gives speed to manifestation. Gratitude anchors it in the present. A thankful heart multiplies blessings, for it recognizes abundance even before it arrives. To speak with faith is not to demand, but to rejoice in advance. The tone of rejoicing declares, "I have received," and the law rushes to make it visible. Every person holds this authority within their tongue, yet few believe it, because they see only the surface of life. They measure their words against appearances instead of truth. They say, "I cannot be free, for my debts are large," forgetting that words precede conditions. The visible world is but the echo of yesterday's speech. Change the words today, and tomorrow must follow. Faith transforms speech into prophecy. Each word becomes a creative decree, shaping future experience. When you speak with faith, The invisible substance of the universe molds itself around your conviction. Circumstances shift. People are drawn, ideas emerge, and opportunities unfold in ways beyond imagination. The law never fails, but it must be spoken into action. To speak faithful words requires discipline. The mind must be trained to resist the temptation to describe what it sees and instead affirm what it desires. It must learn to speak the language of completion rather than complaint. This is not denial of reality, it is the higher recognition of divine reality. When you declare good in the midst of lack, you are not pretending, you are creating. The most powerful speech is simple and direct. The universe does not respond to complexity, but to clarity. 9 words spoken with unwavering faith carry more power than 1,000 spoken with doubt. The one who speaks from inner authority needs no ornament, no pleading tone. Their words go forth as lightning, charged with the fire of belief. And just as lightning transforms the air it touches, so does faith-charged speech transform the atmosphere of one's life. There is an art to speaking faith. It begins with inner stillness, a recognition that the power you call upon is already within you. Then comes the utterance, firm yet serene, filled with assurance. The moment the word is spoken, the work is done on the unseen plane. The individual then walks forward in perfect confidence, acting as though the thing decreed is already true. That attitude of certainty keeps the vibration pure, unclouded by doubt. When words are spoken with faith, they command, not request. They do not wait for permission from circumstance. They declare what is, and by that declaration, make it so. Faith knows no limitation, no delay, no obstruction. It moves mountains because it does not see mountains, only divine order awaiting expression. The voice that speaks from faith does not tremble before appearances, it transforms them. Such is the creative law of the spoken word. The tongue is the servant of faith, the instrument through which spirit molds substance. To speak without faith is to cast shadows. To speak with faith is to command light. And once the word is spoken in that divine certainty, the universe itself bends to fulfill it. Debt is not merely a matter of figures written on paper. It is a vibration of consciousness, a shadow cast by the belief in separation from supply. Every debt in the outer world has its root in an inner feeling of lack, fear, or unworthiness. To dissolve debt, one must first dissolve the thought of debt within the mind. The universe does not recognize owing or owing to. It knows only balance, flow, and perfect circulation. When one aligns speech with divine law, the chains of debt, material or mental, begin to fall away, for law and truth recognize no bondage. Words that are in harmony with divine order carry the vibration of freedom, and freedom is the natural state of all creation. Debt persists when one continues to affirm it. To say, I owe, I can't pay, or I'm in lack, is to plant seeds that sprout more of the same. The law does not reason, it reflects. It is impersonal, impartial, and exact. It simply reproduces what is declared through word and belief. So long as one speaks of debt, debt remains. But when one begins to speak the language of abundance, the tide turns. To align speech with divine law is to speak not of what seems true in the outer world, but of what is eternally true in spirit. That all supply is infinite, that all provision is already complete, that one's needs are met before they are even spoken. When words are chosen in alignment with truth, they become spiritual instruments of release. The person weighed down by bills and obligations may stand in the same circumstance yet speak differently. Instead of confessing lack, they decree abundance. Instead of acknowledging debt, they affirm divine payment. Each word becomes a force of adjustment, moving through the invisible realms, dissolving congestion, restoring flow. For debt is only stagnation, a temporary blocking of divine circulation. To speak in harmony with the law is to open the channel again, allowing divine substance to move freely. Consider how the word paid feels when spoken with conviction. It carries completion, relief, balance. To say, "My debts are paid in full by divine law," is to send a vibration of finished harmony through the mind and into the world. That vibration draws matching experiences, unexpected money, forgiveness, opportunities, and clearings. For every spoken decree is a mold, and the universe must pour substance into that mold. The outer event always takes the shape of the inner word. Debt dissolves not through struggle but through recognition. Struggle affirms separation, recognition affirms unity. The individual who declares, "The universe is my unfailing source, all channels are open, all debts are cleared in divine order," is not speaking fantasy. They are aligning their consciousness with the reality that already exists in spirit. The moment the alignment occurs, invisible adjustments begin. The law of supply, always active, starts to balance accounts in ways beyond human reasoning. To align one's speech with divine law requires vigilance. The world is full of words of fear, crisis, debt, recession, not enough. Each of these words carries a vibration that feeds limitation. When one joins in that conversation, they join in its results. But when one speaks differently, when they dare to speak of abundance in the midst of lack, of freedom in the midst of bondage, they lift themselves into a higher frequency, where supply flows without obstruction. The law always meets us at the level of our word. When one speaks words of divine truth, the subconscious mind receives them as commands. The subconscious, being the creative soil of all experience, begins to rearrange thoughts, feelings, and actions to match the decree. Soon the outer life follows. Bills are paid, opportunities arise, old obligations are lifted. What seemed impossible begins to resolve itself through channels unseen before. Yet the outer is only the reflection. The true change occurs in the inner speech, the steady, unwavering repetition of divine order. There is a vast difference between affirming abundance and attempting to escape debt through denial. Denial without faith is empty, but when one affirms divine payment from a heart that knows the law is already working, that affirmation becomes a decree of power. The vibration of truth carries within it the authority to dissolve false appearances. Every time the word paid, free, or fulfilled is spoken with conviction, the old mental record of debt weakens. The subconscious no longer identifies with owing, but with owning. Not possession of things, but possession of divine assurance. Debt is not punished by the law, it is corrected by it. Divine law seeks equilibrium, not suffering. When speech aligns with that equilibrium, balance is restored automatically. Just as the body heals when harmony is restored to its cells, so do finances heal when harmony is restored to thought and word. A person can speak themselves into peace or into struggle. The choice is constant. Every word is a direction given to the law, and the law obeys perfectly. Those who live in harmony with divine law understand that supply is a circulation, not a storage. When they give, they do so freely, knowing it returns multiplied. When they receive, they do so gratefully, without guilt or fear. Such individuals rarely know the vibration of debt, for they do not obstruct the flow. Their words always move with the rhythm of trust. All that I give returns to me, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. This rhythm keeps the channels of supply wide open. Yet even one burdened by debt can restore this rhythm through speech. To say each day, "There is divine order in my finances, all that is mine by right of consciousness is released to me now," is to begin the process of transformation. Faith must accompany the words, for the words are the vehicle, and faith is the driver. Spoken without faith, they drift. Spoken with faith, they strike their mark. The more one aligns their speech with truth, the less power the appearance of debt holds. Eventually, debt vanishes like mist before the morning sun. The law of supply operates in precision. It does not delay out of cruelty, nor accelerate out of favoritism. It simply reflects consciousness. When your words affirm balance, the law mirrors balance. When you speak debt, it mirrors debt. The moment you speak as one who is free, the mirror shifts. You see reflected back to you a world that corresponds with your declaration. The speech of divine alignment is never hurried or anxious. It carries calm authority, knowing the invisible accounting has already been settled. To speak in harmony with divine law is to trust that no debt is too great for the infinite to balance. There are countless ways by which the law fulfills its word: forgiveness of debt, unexpected income, new ideas, the lightening of burdens. But the form is not the concern of the one who speaks. Their part is to hold the vibration steady, to keep the tongue and thought aligned with truth. The outer manifestation is inevitable, for the universe cannot ignore its own word, echoed through human faith. Debt is a teacher showing where one has forgotten the source. It invites the mind back to divine remembrance, that all things come from one substance, that there is no separation, and that supply is infinite. When one learns to speak from this remembrance, every statement becomes a release of power. I am free from debt is not a future hope, it is an eternal truth, spoken into the now. The law hears only the now, never the tomorrow. Therefore, speech aligned with divine law always speaks in the present tense of fulfillment. Even silence has a vibration, but speech quickens the law into action. The moment one declares divine balance, the moment one refuses to voice lack, the current shifts. The invisible energy that once flowed toward debt now flows toward supply. It is not magic, but mathematics, divine mathematics. Exact and impersonal. The word determines the equation, and the equation must resolve itself into visible results. Every person has the authority to speak divine order into their affairs. The law plays no favorites. It listens only to vibration. When words rise from faith, not fear, they become commands to the infinite. They align the individual with the rhythm of universal abundance. Debt cannot exist where divine speech has established balance, for light and shadow cannot share the same space. Once words are spoken in harmony with divine law, the process of dissolution begins, quietly, surely, inevitably, until every obligation is transformed into freedom. Faith is the language of creation, the unseen force that shapes the visible world. It does not ask, it does not beg, it declares. Faith speaks as one who already possesses the thing desired, not as one hoping to obtain it. It affirms, never pleads, because pleading acknowledges absence, while faith acknowledges completion. The person who pleads says, I do not have, and the law echoes back that statement of lack. The person who affirms says, it is already mine by divine right, and the law rushes to make visible what has been spoken. In this sacred science of the word, faith is the power that gives the command life. Without faith, words are hollow shells. With faith, they become living instruments of creation, charged with divine authority. Faith is the refusal to recognize limitation. It looks beyond appearances and sees the invisible reality of perfection. When one affirms health in the face of sickness, abundance in the face of debt, love in the face of rejection, faith is at work. It does not deny what the senses report, it simply refuses to let appearances dictate truth. To plead is to accept the authority of appearances, but to affirm is to claim the authority of spirit. Faith knows that all substance is already complete, and that the act of affirmation is not creation from nothing, but the unveiling of what eternally exists in the invisible. When faith affirms, it does so without anxiety or strain. It speaks calmly, as one giving thanks for a meal already served. It does not look to tomorrow, for faith lives entirely in the now. The very moment the affirmation is spoken, the work is considered done in spirit, even if the outer form has not yet appeared. This quiet certainty is the secret key. Many people fail because they continue to plead and hope, while their very pleading denies the fulfillment they seek. They pray with desperation, affirming their lack instead of their supply. But the wise one speaks with joy, knowing that every word spoken with conviction moves unseen forces into action. Faith is never emotional in the sense of nervous excitement. It is steady, grounded, serene. It rests in divine law as surely as a child rests in the arms of love. Its affirmations are not frantic repetitions, but quiet commands issued from the inner sanctuary of knowing. When one says, everything I need is here and now supplied, the tone of that speech determines its power. If it is spoken with fear, it is only a wish. If it is spoken with faith, it becomes law. The universe does not respond to the noise of words but to the vibration of belief beneath them. Faith carries the vibration of certainty. Pleading carries the vibration of lack. Faith does not argue with appearances, it simply overrides them with higher truth. If bills arrive, faith does not panic or plead for rescue. It calmly declares, "These are already paid in full by divine order." Such an affirmation does not ignore the situation, it redefines it from the standpoint of spiritual law. Pleading says, "Someone help me." Faith says, "The infinite supply is already working." Pleading sees only the visible. Faith commands from the invisible. In time, the visible must yield, for the unseen is the cause and the seen is only the effect. There is a profound difference between human will and divine faith. The will demands, faith accepts. The will tries to force results through effort. Faith brings results through alignment. To plead is to strain, to push against the current. To affirm is to flow with it. Divine law does not respond to effort. It responds to knowing. The one who affirms does not wrestle with conditions. They speak truth until conditions dissolve. Faith acts as a magnet drawing form out of substance, and the spoken affirmation is the signal that directs the flow. Affirmation is not self-hypnosis, it is spiritual recognition. It is the declaration of a truth that already exists in the higher realm of divine ideas. Each affirmation is a bridge between the unseen and the seen. When one says, "I am divinely guided, prospered, and protected," that statement aligns the individual with the vibration of divine guidance and prosperity. The affirmation opens the channel, faith keeps it open. If one were to speak the same words with doubt or pleading, the vibration would falter and the result would be delayed. It is not the phrase itself that holds the power, but the conviction behind it. Faith affirms from the center of divine identity. It speaks as one with authority, for it knows that the individual is not separate from the infinite but one with it. Pleading implies separation, a small self appealing to a distant power. Affirmation expresses unity, a conscious recognition that divine power works through one as one. When a person speaks from this awareness, every word carries creative potency. The affirmation becomes not a request for help, but a declaration of truth. In that moment, the individual stands as a channel for divine will, and the universe responds instantly. Faith transforms the entire atmosphere of thought. It changes the inner vibration before the outer form appears. It is the quiet insistence that divine order governs every detail, no matter how chaotic appearances seem. It is the refusal to accept defeat as final. Pleading says it has not happened yet. Faith says it is done. The moment the words of faith are spoken, a subtle shift occurs in the invisible. That shift is the beginning of manifestation, though the senses may not perceive it at once. The individual must hold firm, speaking only words that support the decree, refusing to cancel it with doubt or fear. Faith affirms in gratitude, not in anxiety. It knows that gratitude is the evidence of trust. Pleading cannot feel gratitude, for it believes itself empty. Faith gives thanks even before the outer gift appears, and this thankfulness completes the circuit of supply. To affirm with gratitude is to acknowledge that the desired good already exists in spirit and is now on its way into visibility. Every word of thanks adds power to the decree, drawing the manifestation closer. The speech of faith is creative speech. It is precise, measured, and pure. It carries no contradiction, no hidden fear. Each word is spoken from the consciousness of divine sufficiency. When one learns to speak in this way, their entire world changes. Circumstances begin to conform to their words. Opportunities appear. Obstacles dissolve. Harmony returns. This is not coincidence but law, the natural outworking of faith affirmed. The law must respond to the word charged with belief, for the law is exact and impartial. Pleading may seem humble, but in truth it denies divine completeness. To plead for supply is to suggest that supply is absent. To affirm supply is to acknowledge that it is eternally present. Faith stands tall and speaks from the place of already having. It knows that the act of claiming is the act of receiving. The universe cannot bring forth what has not been claimed. The moment one affirms with conviction, "I have all that I need," they step into the vibration of sufficiency, and that vibration draws matching forms into their experience. There is no virtue in pleading for what already belongs to you by right of consciousness. Divine inheritance is not earned through struggle or fear. It is revealed through recognition. Faith affirms that inheritance. Pleading delays it. Every time one pleads for help, they reinforce the belief in separation. Every time one affirms unity with the source, they draw nearer to manifestation. The law does not respond to words of need, but to words of knowing. Faith is a quiet flame that burns steadily in the heart, while pleading is a flickering candle disturbed by every gust of doubt. Faith affirms because it sees through appearances to the eternal reality beneath. It knows that divine order is constant, that the supply is infinite, that every true desire is already fulfilled in spirit. When words are spoken from this consciousness, they move with authority. They are not cries into the void. They are commands from the center of creation itself. To live by faith is to make every word an affirmation of divine perfection. Every statement becomes a seed planted in the soil of the infinite. The faithful gardener does not beg the seed to grow. They affirm its growth and keep the soil ready. Likewise, the one who speaks with faith does not plead for manifestation. They affirm its inevitability and act in accordance with their word. The outer world eventually mirrors that certainty, for divine law never fails to answer the voice of unwavering belief. The unseen supply is the ever-present reservoir of divine substance, invisible to the eyes yet surrounding every soul in infinite measure. It is the spiritual storehouse from which all material expressions of wealth, opportunity, and support arise. It is not somewhere far off in the heavens. It is here, now, within and around every individual. The law of the universe declares that substance is unlimited and always available to those who align their words and thoughts with its frequency. The spoken word of certainty opens the gate to this supply. When speech carries conviction, it calls forth the invisible to become visible. The unseen supply responds not to need or fear, but to the vibration of faith-filled assurance. There is never a lack of substance in the universe, only a lack of recognition. Most people believe they must labor endlessly or struggle for provision, forgetting that the spiritual law of supply is already at work. Divine substance takes form according to consciousness. The moment one speaks with certainty, acknowledging this truth, invisible currents begin to move. Ideas come, doors open, channels appear. The invisible substance starts to crystallize into visible form. This is the secret of manifestation. To know that everything already exists in the unseen realm and that your word, spoken in certainty, shapes it into expression. The one who speaks with fear shuts the gate to this infinite storehouse. Words of worry signal disbelief in divine order, and disbelief clouds the channel through which supply flows. But when one speaks in the language of certainty, every word becomes a bridge between the visible and invisible. The declaration, "The unseen supply is working through me now," activates forces that the intellect cannot perceive. It summons the formless into form. Certainty gives shape to the unseen, while doubt dissolves it back into mist. The unseen supply is impersonal. It has no favorites. It responds to vibration, not to personality or position. The beggar who speaks with faith can draw abundance more swiftly than the rich man who speaks in fear. The law listens only to the tone of belief. If one speaks with conviction, the unseen substance gathers around that word like iron filings to a magnet. It begins to organize itself into form, perhaps through a new idea, a timely encounter, or an unexpected provision. To the outer mind, this may appear as luck, but to the one who understands divine law, it is the inevitable result of spoken certainty. The unseen supply is ever-flowing, ever-responsive, yet it must be claimed. Speech is the instrument of that claim. When you speak words of certainty, you give direction to divine energy. You do not command the universe as a master, but as a co-creator, aligned with law. Your declaration is not an act of arrogance, it is an act of faith. To say, "I am now richly supplied by divine substance," is not to boast. It is to recognize the eternal fact that abundance is your birthright as a spiritual being. The unseen supply cannot deny itself to the one who speaks from knowing, for the law must reflect the vibration that calls it forth. Certainty in speech carries a magnetic power. It does not waver, it does not question. It knows that what is spoken must come to pass. Every thought of doubt delays manifestation because doubt sends mixed signals to the law. It is as though one were planting a seed and then digging it up each day to see if it had sprouted. Certainty, however, plants the seed and leaves it to divine timing, knowing the unseen soil is fertile and responsive. The unseen supply is that soil, invisible, faithful, exact. The moment you declare your word with confidence, the process begins. Many people look for supply through outer channels alone, employers, clients, opportunities, and forget that these are only instruments, not sources. The source is unseen. The moment you speak your word of certainty, you set the unseen power in motion, and it may choose any channel to deliver its good. The wise person does not limit how the supply will appear. They simply remain certain that it will. They understand that divine substance moves in infinite ways, beyond the reasoning of human thought. Certainty frees the law to act. Fear restricts it. When you speak with certainty, you declare your unity with divine abundance. You no longer see yourself as a beggar at the door of life, but as a rightful heir of infinite supply. This recognition changes your vibration. People respond differently, opportunities unfold naturally, and you find yourself in the flow of provision. The unseen supply operates like a river. It flows where channels are open. Words of certainty carve those channels wide, allowing the current to pour through unobstructed. Words of fear build dams that block the current, creating stagnation. To live by certainty is to keep the channel clear. The unseen supply is like electricity, invisible, powerful, and impartial. You do not have to plead for it to work, you only need to make the right connection. Words of faith are the switch that completes the circuit. When you affirm, "Everything I require is now appearing through divine ardor," you turn on the current. When you doubt or complain, you break the circuit. The law is precise and mechanical in its perfection. It cannot respond to confusion. Certainty aligns you with the current, and through that alignment, the invisible power becomes visible substance. To understand that the unseen supply is responsive to spoken certainty is to realize the futility of struggle. You cannot force supply by willpower, you can only invite it by faith. Struggle implies separation. Certainty declares unity. When your word is calm, confident, and sure, it carries the vibration of divine command. The unseen supply recognizes that tone instantly, for it is the same tone by which the universe itself was spoken into being. The creative word, uttered with faith, carries the original power of "let there be." Each human word spoken with certainty is an echo of that primal decree. To live in awareness of unseen supply is to see abundance everywhere, even where others see emptiness. You know that the same invisible energy that clothes the lilies and feeds the sparrows is working for you. You speak from that knowing, not from need. You do not wait for proof before believing. You believe and then see proof. The law reverses the order of human logic. Faith precedes sight. Certainty precedes evidence. The unseen responds to belief and then crystallizes as form. Certainty in speech does not mean loudness or force. It is quiet authority, a tone of finality that carries no doubt. It is the vibration of one who knows that divine substance cannot fail. To say, "My every need is already met," with deep calm and conviction, is to impress that truth upon the subconscious and upon the invisible field of law. Both respond instantly, rearranging conditions to match the vibration of your word. The unseen supply is like a faithful servant waiting only for instruction. Your certainty is the command it recognizes. When one lives in alignment with the unseen supply, fear of loss vanishes. They understand that outer things may come and go, but the source remains inexhaustible. Money, possessions, and opportunities are but changing forms of the same divine energy. To speak with certainty is to stay connected to the source rather than the form. When one's faith rests on form, anxiety follows every change. But when one's faith rests on the unseen supply, peace remains unshaken. Certainty keeps the attention on the invisible, knowing that the visible must follow. The unseen supply responds instantly to spoken assurance. It does not delay out of unwillingness, it waits for alignment. When the mind is full of fear, it sends mixed currents that cancel each other. But when the word of certainty is spoken, the current flows clean and direct. The individual who maintains this vibration finds that supply often comes through unexpected channels. The law works through every avenue, through people, ideas, opportunities, even seeming coincidences. But it all begins with the word spoken in faith. To live in certainty is to walk in partnership with divine law. It is to know that every need is already provided for in the invisible before it appears in the visible. You do not need to chase it, you only need to claim it. The spoken word is the claim ticket, the declaration that brings the unseen substance into form. The certainty behind that word is the power that makes it real. The unseen supply is infinite and ever responding, waiting only for the tone of conviction that says, "It is done." Every word is a seed, and every seed bears its own harvest. This truth stands at the center of divine law, unchanging and absolute. The universe is a vast garden of consciousness, and human speech is the hand that sows within it. Words are never idle, they carry life, vibration, and creative command. Each word spoken sets in motion invisible forces that build, attract, and multiply according to its nature. The soil of the universe does not question what is planted, it simply brings forth after its kind. When words of faith, love, and abundance are sown, they must yield increase. When words of fear, doubt, or complaint are scattered, they too must return in kind. The law of harvest is impartial, exact, and always in operation. The individual is the sower, and their life is the field. Every thought and word is a seed dropped into that field. No harvest appears without planting. The words you speak today determine the fruit you shall gather tomorrow. Many people look upon their circumstances as accidents or misfortunes, never realizing that their outer world is but the mirror of their inner speech. They have sown without awareness, and their harvest reflects the unconscious planting of limitation. The wise, however, speak deliberately. They choose words as carefully as a gardener selects seeds, knowing that every utterance will take root in the fertile soil of divine substance. Words are living things. They are clothed in emotion, charged by belief, and carried upon the breath of spirit. Once released, they move forth to fulfill their assignment. The spoken word of faith is a creative decree, carrying with it the power of multiplication. It may appear small and insignificant, but within it lies the pattern of fulfillment. Just as a tiny acorn holds the image of a mighty oak, so does a single word of truth contain the blueprint of abundance. Every declaration of health, every affirmation of joy, every acknowledgement of supply is a seed carrying divine life. When spoken with conviction, it takes root in the invisible and must eventually appear in form. The harvest may not come at once, for every seed requires time to germinate and grow, yet the law is unfailing. The gardener does not doubt the seed simply because it is hidden beneath the soil. They water, they tend, they wait, knowing that growth is taking place in silence. So must one treat the words of truth. Speak them, nurture them with faith, and resist the temptation to dig them up with words of contradiction. Doubt is the uprooting force that destroys many a harvest before it matures. The soil cannot yield both faith and fear. It must respond to whichever seed is most persistently planted. To understand that words are seeds is to become the conscious cultivator of life. Idle speech, gossip, criticism, and complaint are weeds that choke the garden. They rob vitality from the good seeds and invite discord into the field. Every careless word carries a vibration that attracts its own kind. Words of anger call forth more situations to justify anger. Words of lack invite further lack. The tongue, therefore, is not a trivial instrument. It is the plow of creation. Through it the soul carves the furrows of destiny. He who guards his speech guards his harvest. When one begins to plant words of power deliberately, the first fruits may be subtle. A feeling of calm, a hint of improvement, a small sign of provision. These are the tender shoots breaking the surface of the soil. If nurtured through persistence and gratitude, they multiply. The harvest expands in proportion to the faith with which the words were spoken. Divine law does not measure by quantity of speech but by quality of conviction. A single word spoken in absolute faith outweighs 1,000 muttered in doubt. The seed of truth, when pure and focused, calls forth a harvest of harmony that cannot be hindered. The emotional tone behind the word determines its vitality. Words spoken with love, joy, and confidence carry creative life. Words uttered in resentment or despair carry decay. The universe responds, not to the letters of the word, but to the vibration behind it. Thus, to plant the right seeds, one must not only speak truth, but feel truth. The heart is the warmth that germinates the seed. Cold, mechanical repetition yields little, but a single affirmation spoken with glowing certainty ignites the whole field into activity. The unseen responds instantly to genuine feeling. To plant words of good and then follow them with words of doubt is like planting wheat and then trampling the soil. Each contradictory statement weakens the original seed. The gardener of consciousness must therefore be steadfast, refusing to speak contrary to their desire. They must hold the vision and keep their words aligned with it. When lack appears, speak abundance. When fear arises, speak courage. When delay comes, speak fulfillment. Every affirmation is a seed, every repetition is water, every feeling of gratitude is sunlight. Together, they ensure a rich harvest. The universe keeps perfect record. It forgets nothing that has been sown. The harvest may appear delayed, but it is never denied. Some seeds lie dormant until the right season of faith arrives. Then, as if overnight, the field bursts into bloom. People call this miracle or coincidence. Yet it is the inevitable outworking of law. The words once spoken, charged with belief, finally matured in divine timing. Every farmer knows that there is a season for sowing and a season for reaping. The spiritual law operates the same way. Speak the word, and let divine timing unfold its perfection. Many seek to change their outer lives without changing their inner speech. They prune the branches while continuing to plant the same old seeds. But transformation begins in the spoken word. When one changes the language of their mind and mouth, the outer world must follow. Life rearranges itself to reflect the new vibration. The words I can, I have, I am are seeds of power. They summon the unseen forces of success, supply, and health into action. The words I can't, I lack, I fear are seeds of limitation that summon their own barren harvest. The soil of the universe makes no moral judgment, it simply grows what it is given. To master the creative word is to become a conscious participant in divine creation. Every sentence becomes sacred, every thought becomes fertile. The one who truly understands this law speaks with purpose and reverence. They do not waste speech in idle chatter. They understand that the tongue holds the key to every kingdom. If they desire abundance, they speak abundance. If they desire peace, they speak peace. The outer life becomes a reflection of the inner conversation. The harvest of tomorrow is growing from the words spoken today. The spoken word continues to vibrate long after it has left the lips. It moves through the unseen realms, attracting conditions, weaving connections, opening doors. A word of blessing spoken in faith may travel far beyond one's awareness, touching lives, creating opportunities, and returning multiplied. Likewise, a word of bitterness may linger and return with its own bitter fruit. The wise speak only those words they wish to see return, for return they must. Even silence is a form of sowing, for within silence dwell the unspoken thoughts that shape the next word. But when the silence is filled with faith and inner assurance, it becomes the rich soil from which divine ideas spring forth. Then every word that emerges from that silence carries the fragrance of power. Each syllable becomes a seed of light, destined to bear fruit in perfect season. The eternal law cannot be broken. Every word is a seed, every thought a germ, every feeling a ray of light or shadow that nourishes its kind. When one awakens to this truth, speech becomes sacred and deliberate. The individual becomes the gardener of their destiny, shaping life through the careful sowing of truth-filled words. The harvest is certain, for the universe is faithful to its own law. The seeds sown in faith and love must return multiplied, each word bearing fruit after its own kind, filling the field of life with the abundance of its vibration.